We're now going to access our freight orders and navigate through the document so we understand the different tabs and the different details that the freight order document provides in TM. So the first thing we'll do is click on the hyperlink for the freight order that we're going to look at. In this case, I'm going to look at this first one here, the one ending by 305, and this will load a new window in TM. And now every time you click on a freight order or any other hyperlinked document, as we see here we have more than one document, what TM will do is load a new page. So for example, if I click on my next document, which is the freight unit number, this will also load a new window. So eventually, if we keep clicking on hyperlinks, TM will load new windows each and every time. So always be careful that you know what document you are looking at. In this case, we see at the top left, as I was saying in the previous recording, 4.1 relates to the freight unit and not the freight orders. You can see right behind this window, we have the one for the freight order that we were looking at before. Now with two windows, it's quite easy to know which one we're looking at, but when you have 5 or 6, you could get confused. So make sure you're always just displaying the one window you're interested in, as you could always just click on any of the documents at any time to view them in a different window. Now that we're looking at our freight order, we'll see that one of the first tabs that is selected is the Document Flow tab. This Document Flow tab displays documents, all the documents that are linked to our freight order. In this case, we see the freight order is leading the report, or the page in this case, is leading the documents in this window that has loaded. And right below it, we have our freight unit, the DTR number that was generated, and the inbound delivery number. These three documents, freight unit, DTR, and inbound delivery, are all linked to each other and are automatically generated as soon as our PO is approved. In our particular case now, if we would like to see all the freight orders that are linked to the freight unit, for example, we should simply click on the freight unit and also navigate to the Document Flow tab, as we are here, usually the first one that displays, and we would see all the freight orders that are linked to this freight unit. Our freight unit is everything that we can ship at once. So that's what the freight unit represents in a very simple way of explaining it. Anything that we can ship at once. So all the items that belong to this freight unit are going to be shipped through these different freight orders, which represent legs in our transportation. So to understand what each of these freight orders represents, we can always look at the details that are provided to the left in the same screen. So we can see that these two first freight orders are not exactly the same as the ones below. If we take a look at the description, we see UNOE vendor delivered freight order. So this is the vendor delivered freight order. So in this case, we have two vendor delivered freight orders, and the last two are freight forwarder delivered freight orders. Which means, by looking at this screen, that this is probably an FCA Incoterm, which means that two of these freight orders were automatically generated by the system, while the other two were manually generated by the TM Planner. Let's go back to our freight order and understand how to navigate through the different tabs and what each one of them is going to show us. So let's close this window. And now that we're back in our original freight order, let's go all the way to the left and see that we have a number of other tabs that we have not looked at. For example, General Data. General Data will display exactly that, the general data that is linked to this freight order. With the Business Partner tab, once you click on it, you can see the shipper, consignee, and carrier that are linked to this specific freight order. So for this specific freight order, there has already been a carrier assigned, as we can see here. We can see what the source location is, as well as our destination location, in this case South Sudan, and also the freight forwarder that is going to transport our goods from, let's say, point A to point B. In this case, this is only one of the legs and not the full transportation route. You can also scroll to the right and see other details that may have been added based on the master data in TM. So very simply, this Business Partner tab will display to you the carrier that is assigned to this freight order. So the key information under this Business Partner tab would mainly be to understand what the carrier is or who the carrier is for this particular leg or freight order. We also have an Items tab that will display the items that belong to this freight unit that are also in this leg or freight order. And we can directly go through each and every one of the other tabs that will provide us specific information. For example, in this case, the stage. So this will define exactly the stage that this freight order is linked to. In this case, Durban Port to Mombasa Port. So now we understand that this freight order represents the leg between this source location, Durban Port, and this destination location, Mombasa Port, which is not our final destination as we saw under the Business Partner tab. To see all of the possible tabs that are in this window, we can also go to this folder all the way to the right, and by clicking on it, we can see that some of these tabs have not been displayed. We can go all the way to the one at the bottom, Output Management, and we'll see that now the tabs have changed at the top. So not all can fit on the screen at once, but you could always just click on the folder and view any of the tabs that may be hidden. The tabs that we're mainly going to be looking at in order to view events, submit events, add notes and attachments are the following. Let's return to our Document Flow tab, and we'll see that right next to it, to the right, we have our Execution, Notes, and Attachment tabs. These are the ones we're mainly going to be focusing on for the rest of the tutorial. The Execution tab will show us the events that are supposed to be submitted for this specific freight order. Each one of them also linked to a specific event or document. We have our Notes tab, which will show us the screen of our conversations with our freight forwarder. Let's say if we're keeping contact with our freight forwarder, we would have to write the information under this tab called Notes. And anything we write on this tab and save will also be visible under the system that the vendors and freight forwarders will be using called CCP. You will be able to add notes and comments or any remarks that you consider important for the freight forwarder or goods vendor to know, and they will be able to see these notes in the CCP module. And vice versa. If a freight forwarder or vendor has added any remarks or notes in CCP, you will be able to, as a TM planner, to view these notes under this tab. And finally, the Attachments tab, which is where we would add any attachments that are considered key. For example, any documents that are linked to the events that we are submitting and we need to attach to the TM module. You could simply drag those documents and drop them right here where it says Drop Files here, or you can always insert them one by one.